Hi, and welcome to another episode. I'm your host, Brian Mattocks. With me today is Joe Giovannoli from Nine Sale. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So, Joe, if you could tell us a little bit about your background for our listeners out there, that'll help them kind of get a frame of reference for where you're going to be talking from.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good. So, my virtually my entire career has been in the agency world. Even coming out of college, work in the agency space, web development, web design, SEO. SEO has always been a really constant in my life. But in 2015, I started Nine Sale as a full service agency that very quickly evolved into an SEO firm. Within like 2 years. We just kind of stripped everything out and focused on SEO. So bachelor's degree in marketing, and I've carried that through the whole way.
So, when you started Nine Sale and decided to narrow down, what was behind that decision-making process?
So it's a great question. So I had only known full service agency world prior to starting Nine Sales. So I didn't really know that there was an ability to, only pick one service. And also there was that kind of scare factor of like, oh man, like how am I going to get enough clients to pay me for this one service? But really, something that was instrumental was I read a book called Built to Sell by John Warrillow. And it was pretty much at the time that I read it, it was my story. Like I had clients that were never happy with web design and clients that were never happy with social media, but I would constantly get little notes from our SEO clients saying like, hey, I just closed $100,000 deal from something that came from our website, or, hey, your services just paid for themselves for the next 6 years, like little notes. And finally, I just got to a point where I said, you know what, like the headache all around us is not worth it. We do this really, really well. So we actually fired 80% of our staff and 80% of our clients within a very short time window. Of course, we helped those clients to get to where they needed to go and finish up what we were contractually obligated to do. But
Right.
we said, hey, this is the drop dead date that we're going to just do SEO. And that really changed things for us big time. Changed the energy at the company. It changed our profitability. It changed everything. It was awesome.
So the overall SEO sort of landscape since you started and even now is highly competitive, which qualifies your business as being, not to plug the name of the show here, but hard to market. So, how do you market your services in a very crowded market space?
So to complicate things a little bit more, we're very niche focused. So we only work with law firms, which adds a very interesting element, very hard to market element to it. And what we found to be effective is, one, first and foremost, practicing what we preach, which is to create our own content and to get out there and get quoted in publications. We do some account-based marketing where we have a list of a very targeted list of firms that we're going after. And we've had to spend a lot of time narrowing down who our ICP is. It took us years to figure out that we even needed to do that. And it's taken us months and months to even build out those lists. So, ABM is really for us like a core way of growth.
So, can we talk about that for a minute? The ICP conversation that a lot of the folks listening are marketers, so they're not, they're familiar with it. But it's really difficult to tell when you've landed, right? You start with a fairly, what you think at the time is super specific, like you're cutting out a third of your market space or, 90% of your market space or whatever. But that gets, it sounds like hyper specific over time. It's not just like your broad brush, like, oh yeah, I work with attorneys. How has your definition evolved? What does it look like now versus what it looked like even just a year ago?
Oh man, it's so different. So yeah, first and foremost, we practice EOS in our business, entrepreneurial operating system. So
Right.
that's how we run our firm. And EOS has the 80% rule, right? Get something 80% of the way there, get it 80% right. You can tweak and refine later on, but 80% is really good. And that's a good operating place. So, we got about 6 months ago, we got our ICP to about what we feel was about 80%, right? We narrowed down, who the specific buyer was, how big the firm was that we were looking for, what practice areas specifically we wanted to target. So to answer your question, a year ago, we had none of that. Like we were kind of anybody that had a law firm that was of a decent size or had the budget to spend on what we did, we went after, we targeted, we were willing to put a proposal together. In the last 6 months, we've actually turned away more work than we have taken, including law firm work, because they just weren't the right fit. And we knew that, for whatever reason, the firm was too big and there was going to be too much, red tape to go through.
Overhead. Yeah.
Or the firm was too small and, the managing partner had to practice law, sell, and be the lead marketer, right? Like we just didn't feel that was a good fit. So we've had to do uncomfortable things to get to where we are today, but it's a completely different picture than where we were even a year ago. And the company's going to be 9 years old in April. So, or it's going to be 10 years old in April? No, 9 years old in April. 9 years old.
So as you've gone through that journey, though, and I think this is a part that I've heard a lot. You always think you have it until you have it.
Right.
Right. So a year ago, you're like, "Oh, this is great. I got I'm 10 times more specific than when I started." And now, even just a year later, you're even more specific.
Yeah.
Do you think you're done?
No. So that's also the misconception, is that you can only have one ICP. And that's not necessarily true. You can have multiple ICPs within your business, right? And in our case, we're probably going to have a smaller size and a more mid size, category there. We're also in the process of starting a sister business to this, which I'm not willing to share right now, which will have its own ICP and its own, things, right? But you're never really done, because there's going to be changes in the market. There's going to be changes in the way that you do things. You're going to find easier, faster, better ways. You may find ways to help another market, right? So you're never really done with that work. Also in our space, right, in the legal space, like there's regulations that come out and things like that. So the environmental factors may actually change some of that for us, fortunately and unfortunately. So we're never really done. And I can't say confidently that there's any business out there that can set this and forget it and just follow the same path over and over again. I think that they have to evolve and change.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, my experience is very similar. When I guess one of the things that is really interesting then is, how do you know when what you have now, what are the indicators that it's starting to not be the right fit anymore? Like, how have you calibrated that over time?
So that's a good question. So I'll give you an example. We very rarely take on anybody in the personal injury space. Why is that? So what we found is that a lot of the folks that we were, getting introduced to or were finding us were super small personal injury firms who didn't have a lot of budget, where you have a lot of PI firms that are quite large out there that are spending millions of dollars a month on advertising. Just basic math, there's no way they're going to be able to compete. Even if they went with a hyper local approach, there's no way they're going to be able to compete against some of these big guys. And
right.
It's just not a space that we enjoyed. Very similar to what I said earlier, the managing partner typically wants to be involved in some capacity, and there's a lot of things that they're doing, and we've just decided as a firm it wasn't really an approach that we wanted to take. I want to say, that said, we have two firms that we've been working with as legacy clients for a long time. They're seeing great results. We've carved out a very specific niche that we work with, right? Even in a very hyper competitive space like personal injury. We carved out a niche and we work with them so super well. But it's not something we take on new clients for. It's
Gotcha.
just too difficult.
Yeah. So, in the process of helping your clients through this, anybody that's done any marketing for legal knows that that's already super competitive. And you being a SEO firm that specializes in legal, that's super competitive. It sounds like you have made an entire trajectory out of these really, really small bullseye style approaches. Um, what's the next one? I mean, I understand you're starting a new business. I don't want to talk, and you don't want to talk about that right now. And that's we'll get you in 6 months to a year when you're ready. But what about those challenges make them attractive to you as a marketer?
So we're filling a need that not many out there do well. And that became very apparent to me very quickly. So when I mentioned earlier that we changed our whole business model, we pivoted towards, just doing SEO, and it was SEO and paid search. So I really should say SEM as well. But we had one law firm client at the time that we made this call. And I decided to roll the dice and essentially bet the house on the fact that, hey, we're going to only go after law firms. So 2015 start the firm. By 2017, end of 2017, we had pretty much made the determination that law firms were the direction we were going to go. And it was because I saw an opportunity in the space. I saw a lot of people, providing these SEO services to law firms that I was surprised that they were even getting away with it, right? Like, you think law firms, one, a lot of people are afraid to work with lawyers and law firms because they don't want to get sued. And the level of services that I was seeing that they were receiving, I was like, well, we can do this. So we are already doing this so much better. Like, this is our time to shine. We could go after this. So, I like to look for that opportunity in a market where, yeah, sure, there may be a lot of competitors and stuff like that, but if you can help make yourself stand out from the quality of service that you provide, as well as have people backing the results that they're seeing, the space starts to open up very quickly, because you do have a lot of companies out there that they're providing an automated service that's, most of it is done overseas somewhere. And, for some firms that it's all they can afford and they're happy with it. Right. But, for the firms that are experienced and they're looking to grow, you need to pay somebody that's going to do that for you well. So that's always been my focus, and what I look for is, is there an opportunity to make waves in this space? Is there an opportunity to blaze a path to, being a household name in these firms? And that's really all we're after.
Yeah, it's very tempting, right? And I've said this before with, on the show, it's very tempting you start out and you're like, okay, I'll take money from anybody with a pulse and a check. And then you realize very quickly that, like, there's some folks that they can't possibly pay you enough that you want to keep working with them.
Yeah.
And then
we had our share.
Yeah,
share.
no doubt. Right. You move through that, and then you get to where you're at now, which is like, it sounds like with that super niche focus, you're able to really not only command top dollar, but also deliver, consistently top tier results, which is awesome. So I guess that leads me to, so what are kind of the risks and the threats that are coming your way business wise? Because I know the moment you become a top dog in this space, the very next thing that happens is you've got a lot of folks want to eat your lunch. So how do you
Yeah.
work with that?
Yeah, so there's definitely some much bigger players in the space than us right now, right? So we're not necessarily the top dog at this point, but we are definitely, I think, in the conversation when people are considering who their vendor's going to be. And I think the competition that's out there right now, everybody's at a very different place and price point and stuff like that. So, like, I feel like we each have our space. I think eventually I'd love to get the meeting of the minds together to just sit down with each of these owners and talk shop. But so kind of to answer your question about the threats, we all face one threat, and I'm putting this in air quotes. AI is something that nobody understands what the future of that looks like at this moment in time. Google is dropping in generative AI results into their kind of SERP just to shake things up a little bit and give people some answers that maybe aren't necessarily looking to go to a specific website or that kind of stuff. But that's kind of a environmental factor, I'll call it, because I don't know what else to call it. That may change things a bit. But you do, and it's the best form of flattery. You do see that your name starts to get paid for on Google ads. Like if you Google yourself, and as soon as you see that another company, their ad is showing up on Google for your name, you know that you're on somebody's radar.
Yeah.
We've had that happen a few times. And that's been kind of an interesting thing because it's entirely legal. You just can't, they can't use our name in their actual ad. They can target our name, but they can't use our name in their ad. So you start to be the person, the company that people are trying to figure out who your clients are, and they're starting to try to poach them and go after them. We've had a little bit of that here and there. We've had clients say, "Oh yeah, hey, by the way, so and so reached out, and they know that you work with them, work with us," and that happens. But you just start to get more and more on people's radar, which means you have to have your shit together, right? Like you have to internally, you have to have your processes sound, you have to have your clients really happy and satisfied. You want to make sure as you grow and scale, you're not just growing to scale to grow. You're looking to actually build a business that is sustainable, and you want to have a lot of really great and happy people that are not going to leave on a drop of a hat if somebody offers them a $500 discount. You know what I mean?
Right.
So those are some of the kind of the risk factors and some of the threats. But right now we're just trying to make sure that we offer a good service to lawyers.
Yeah, no, I get that. That's awesome. So when you're going through that process and you've got it all kind of calibrated and refined, and it, like I said, it sounds like it's all dialed in. When you look at the services you're currently offering, more often than not, right, in most businesses, you find that there is that lateral expansion, or you get the vertical expansion. We talked about what we're not going to talk about. But where are you expanding in the domain of the business you currently have in terms of your service offerings?
Yeah, so we rolled out this year 2 new services. So SEO and SEM were always our two. We rolled out 2 services that are extremely complementary and the things that our clients were asking us to do. So we rolled out a content creation arm of the business. We had been partnering with a few outside vendors, and we still do. Like we have clients that we share with partners for various reasons. If we have a conflict of interest, or for whatever reason we go to somebody, but we do have content creation in house. I have a head of content that has an English degree and has a team of editors and writers that we can pull from depending on the subject matter. And then we introduced a digital public relations offering. And what that essentially means is that we're selling our backlinking service kind of as its own service. So anything that we're going after with digital PR is more focused on only digital publications. We're not trying to get print media. We're not trying to do any of that kind of stuff. We are very much doing things for the intentful purpose of finding, subject matter specific locations that we can get our clients mentioned in, that will give us a link back to their website to make sure that we're consistently building that online authority. So we've done this a little bit out of necessity and a little bit out of, we think that this is the next step in SEO firm world. So we've been doing this pretty well to this point. Next year is going to kind of be a breakout year, I think, for the digital PR service. So but outside of that, one thing that we won't get into is doing website design and development ever again. That's not something that we have any interest in doing. We have a lot of great partners that we've vetted depending on the need and the budget. We have a partner that'll fit every budget that we've been working with for years and we're super comfortable with. But I always get asked oh, why don't you just add that as a service hire developer? It's like, because I don't want to deal with that. We start to get into the place where, our clients' brothers friend's wife has a comment about the color of the site and now everything needs to change, right? It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't have the patience for that, right? Like it's, I want things that are data driven and SEO and content that's actually performing. That stuff's very data driven.
Yeah. No, that's great. So, as we start to wrap here, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about who a good referral for you is, and how should they reach out. I guess this is a chance to talk about one of your favorite ICPs,
Yeah.
and how should they get a hold of you?
Yeah, sure. So we love working with B2B law firms, specifically like business law or corporate law firms. Very unique for an SEO firm. Most people are trying to go after, personal injury, immigration, family law. While family law is in one of our ICP categories, I love the corporate and business law firms. 10 to 30 attorney firms are like an absolute sweet spot for us. Usually 10, 5 to 10 partners at the firm. Yeah. And, just people that are looking to either, expand their business in an existing market, grow into a new market. And that could be a geographic market or an area of business law or corporate law. Really any firm like that. And I will also say we do get a lot of referrals from, web development companies and branding companies, the folks that we also reciprocate and we send work to.
Mm,
With a lot of the laws and I'll drop a little knowledge here, with a lot of the laws changing in some of the states, law firms are now allowed to have a name that doesn't have one of the partners' names in the actual firm name. So, you have folks, my friend owns the Wills and Trust firm. Right. And that's a new change, and there's going to be a lot of branding needs that come with that. So, we're always looking for good branding partners to reach out and kind of build a relationship with them.
awesome. And Joe, as we start to wrap, the last question, and it's one of the heavier questions, is what are the three biggest lessons you picked up in your journey to become the successful marketer that you are today?
Measure everything, because if you can't measure it, it's a waste of money. That's one big thing that we've always told our clients, but we've learned ourselves, is that, throwing money at the wall to see what sticks is not purposeful spending. And, you could have gotten the same results potentially spending half the money or a quarter of the money. So, tracking is really, really important. I think another thing is and I'm going to say this and ruffle some feathers, but if you have somebody offering you a proprietary platform, run the other direction, because that means that you can't hire anybody else to do anything else for you. And if you ever decided to part ways with this vendor, you would need to go and have a new website rebuilt, or you would
Start
need
from
to go
zero. Yeah.
yeah, you're starting over, and because there's nothing that they can transfer over, nor are they going to be comfortable with that. So there's a lot of these companies out there, and I don't understand why people would lock themselves into one versus having options. And I think the third thing is just really making sure that you're comfortable with the partners that you choose, and being very open and honest with your communication about what it is that you're looking for. And I can use us as an example. We've had partners over the years where, after 3 or 4 months, I always book a call with somebody new that we've brought on to say, hey, this is what's working really great, but here's a couple of things that we need to improve, because this part isn't working for us. And that having that feedback and making sure that the person on the other end is actually receiving that feedback well and not being defensive about it, proves that we have a really good partner. And it's, that has proven to create great relationships in any part of our business, including marketing and most importantly, marketing.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been an awesome conversation. I think our listeners will get a lot out of it.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. This was great.